Tonight, I want to tell you something that may change the way you see your entire life. You don't need more time. You need an operating system. Because a life that feels chaotic is rarely chaotic because you're lazy or broken or behind. It's chaotic because nothing is organizing it. Your mind wakes up and immediately starts reacting. Your phone pulls you. Other people's expectations pull you. Old habits pull you. Random tasks steal your attention. And by the end of the day, you feel tired, but not truly completed. Not because you did nothing, but because your day had no order. And here's the truth most people never hear. Motivation won't organize your life. Hustle won't organize your life. Even discipline, by itself, won't organize your life. Only principles do. Because principles are quiet, but they are strong. They don't depend on mood. They don't depend on energy spikes. They don't depend on perfect mornings. Principles create structure even on your messy days. So, in this video, I'm going to give you 10 principles that can organize your entire life. Not in a rigid, a stressful way, but in a calm, powerful way. These principles won't just help you manage your schedule. They will organize your thoughts, your energy, your focus, your decisions, and even the way you handle pressure. And as you listen, you may notice something happening. Your mind begins to settle, because the mind loves order. The nervous system loves rhythm. And your life becomes peaceful not when everything is perfect, but when you finally have a system you can trust. Stay with me to the end. Because Principle 7 is the reason time management fails for most people, even when they're trying hard. And Principle 10 is the one that quietly changes identity, so order becomes natural, not forced. If you're listening at night, that's perfect. You don't need to take notes. You don't need to memorize anything. Just let the ideas land. Because the goal here isn't to push you harder. The goal is to make life simpler. One clear priority. One clean direction. One calm rhythm. So take a slow breath in and let it out. And let's begin with the first principle. The one that creates order before you do anything else. Before anything in your life can become organized, one thing must be decided. Not optimized, not improved. Decided. Because order does not begin with doing more. It begins with choosing one thing that matters most. Most people feel overwhelmed, not because they have too much to do, but because everything feels equally important. When everything matters, nothing leads. Your mind wakes up and immediately faces 10 silent demands. Messages, responsibilities, worries, plans, expectations, each one pulling in a different direction. So the mind does what it always does. Under pressure, it reacts. Reaction feels busy, but reaction is not direction. And without direction, there can be no order. This is why productivity advice often fails. It teaches you how to manage tasks, but not how to choose what deserves to be managed first. The principle of one true priority is simple, but it is not easy. It asks one question that most people avoid. What is the single priority that organizes all others? Not 5 goals. Not a long list. 1. This does not mean the other parts of your life disappear. It means they finally fall into place. Think of your life like a wheel. If there is no central hub, the wheel collapses. But when one true priority becomes the center, everything else aligns around it. Without this center, your days feel fragmented. You move from task to task, conversation to conversation, never fully present, never fully finished. With a center, decisions become lighter. You stop asking, "Should I do this now?" and start asking, "Does this serve my priority?" That single question eliminates hundreds of small decisions. And decision fatigue is one of the biggest sources of chaos in modern life. Your nervous system was not designed to evaluate endless choices. It was designed to follow direction. When direction is clear, the body relaxes. The mind settles. Energy becomes available. This is why clarity feels calming. Now, here is where many people misunderstand this principle. They think a priority must be dramatic, a lifelong mission, a grand purpose. It doesn't. A true priority can be temporary. It can be seasonal. It can be as simple as this month. My priority is restoring my energy. This season, my priority is building one skill deeply. This phase of my life, my priority is stability. The power is not in how impressive it sounds. The power is in how clearly it organizes your choices. When you choose one true priority, you give your mind permission to say no. And no is not rejection. No is protection. Protection of focus. Protection of energy. Protection of peace. Most chaos enters life through unguarded yeses. Yes to things that don't matter right now. Yes to urgency that isn't aligned. Yes to distractions disguised as responsibility. A single priority becomes a filter. If something does not pass through that filter, it waits. Not forever. Just not now. And not now is one of the most organizing decisions you can make. Notice how different this feels. Instead of rushing, you are choosing. Instead of reacting, you are directing. This shift alone changes how your day unfolds. Your mind no longer wakes up asking, "What do I have to deal with today?" It wakes up knowing, "This is what today is for." And when the day has a purpose, time stops slipping through your hands. You are no longer chasing completion. You are moving toward it. Now, let's make this practical. Your one true priority must meet three conditions. First, it must be singular. If it can be split into parts, it is not yet clear enough. Second, it must be present-focused. Not someday I want to, but right now. This is what matters. Third, it must be emotionally stabilizing. When you think of it, you should feel grounded, not pressured. If your priority creates anxiety, it's too big or too vague. Clarity calms. Pressure scatters. You are not choosing a burden. You are choosing an anchor. Once you have your priority, you do not need to think about it constantly. In fact, overthinking weakens it. You simply return to it when choices appear. A message comes in. A request arrives. A distraction tempts you. You pause, and you ask one question. Does this support my priority? If yes, proceed. If No. Postpone or decline. That's it. No inner debate. No guilt. This is how order is maintained without force. Your priority becomes the silent leader of your day. Over time, something interesting happens. Your identity begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to get organized and start experiencing yourself as someone who lives with direction. Direction builds trust. Trust builds calm. Calm builds consistency. And consistency is what turns order into a way of life. You will also notice that people respond differently to you, not because you explain yourself more, but because your actions carry coherence. You are less scattered in conversation, less rushed in decisions, less apologetic for your boundaries. This quiet confidence is not personality. It is alignment. And alignment is felt. Remember this. You do not need to control your entire life to feel ordered. You only need to choose what leads. Everything else will follow. So before we move to the next principle, take a moment. You don't need to write anything yet. Just notice. What would change if one thing truly came first? What would feel lighter if you stopped trying to advance everything at once? That answer is already forming inside you. In the next chapter, we'll look at what quietly destroys order, not through chaos, but through what you allow into your mind every day. This is the principle of clean inputs, and it changes everything once you see it. Order does not begin with what you do. It begins with what you allow in. Most people try to organize their lives from the outside: their schedule, their tasks, their environment. But they overlook the most powerful organizing force of all their inputs. Your mind is not chaotic by accident. It is responding exactly as it was trained to respond by what it consumes every day. News, social media, conversations, noise, images, opinions, urgency. These inputs arrive quietly, constantly, and they shape your internal state long before you notice the effects. If your mind feels scattered, it is not because you lack discipline. It is because you are overexposed. The nervous system was never designed to process endless streams of information without rest. And when the nervous system is overloaded, it seeks relief through distraction. This creates a loop: overstimulation, fatigue, distraction, guilt, more stimulation. Order cannot exist inside that loop. The principle of clean inputs interrupts it. Clean inputs do not mean avoiding the world. They mean choosing what deserves your attention. Think of your mind like a room. Every sound that enters changes the atmosphere. Every image rearranges the furniture. Every conversation leaves something behind. If you leave the door open all day, the room becomes cluttered without effort. Clean inputs mean learning to close the door not permanently, but intentionally. This principle asks one simple question: is what I'm consuming helping me become clearer or more fragmented? Clarity feels spacious. Fragmentation feels urgent. Urgency is often mistaken for importance, but urgency is usually a sign of external pressure, not internal alignment. Most people wake up and immediately expose their minds to stimulation. A screen, messages, updates, before the day has even begun. Their attention is already scattered across dozens of concerns that are not theirs to carry. This is why mornings often feel rushed even when there is time. The mind has already been invaded. Clean inputs start with the first moments of the day, not by adding a perfect routine, but by removing unnecessary noise. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is structure. It gives the mind a chance to organize itself. When inputs are reduced, thoughts naturally slow down. When thoughts slow down, order emerges without force. Now, let's be practical. Clean inputs operate in three main areas: information, people, environment. You don't need to eliminate these. You need to curate them. Information first. Information overload does not make you informed. It makes you reactive. Most information you consume today does not require action from you, but your nervous system reacts as if it does. This creates constant low-level stress. Clean information means limiting exposure to content that does not serve your priority. Not forever. Just for now. You don't need to know everything happening. You need to know what matters to you. Less information leads to better decisions. Not because you are ignorant, but because your attention is not divided. Second, people. Every interaction leaves a residue. Some conversations leave you calmer. Others leave you tense. This does not mean one person is good and another is bad. It means their energy affects your state. Clean inputs include emotional boundaries. You are allowed to limit conversations that drain you. You are allowed to pause explanations. You are allowed to protect your focus. This is not selfishness. It is self-regulation. Order cannot grow in constant emotional turbulence. Third, environment. Your surroundings are silent instructions. Clutter signals unfinished business. Noise signals urgency. Disorder signals confusion. You don't need a perfect space. You need a neutral one. A space that does not demand attention. When your environment is visually calm, your mind mirrors it. This is why even small changes matter. Clearing one surface, dimming lights, reducing background noise. These are not aesthetic choices. They are neurological ones. Clean inputs do not make life boring. They make it intelligible. When your inputs are clean, your mind can finally hear itself think. And when you can hear yourself think, you stop reacting. You start choosing. Choosing restores order. Now, here's the most important part of this principle. Clean inputs are not about restriction. They are about respect. Respect for your attention. Respect for your energy. Respect for your nervous system. You don't owe constant availability to the world. You owe clarity to yourself. And clarity requires space. When inputs are reduced, the mind naturally reorganizes. You may notice old thoughts resurfacing, ideas you haven't heard in a while, insights that were drowned out by noise. This is not regression. It is integration. The mind uses quiet to sort. This is why people often feel uncomfortable when they first reduce stimulation. The noise disappears and the mind becomes visible. Stay with it. Order follows exposure reduction. You don't need to detox everything at once. Start small. One quieter morning. One less scroll. One conversation postponed. Each small act creates room. Room becomes clarity. Clarity becomes order. Before moving to the next principle, pause for a moment. Notice what you consume automatically, not with judgment, with curiosity. Which inputs leave you clearer, which leave you scattered? That awareness alone has already begun organizing your life. In the next chapter, we'll talk about what turns clarity into momentum. Not discipline, not pressure, but a simple daily order that your mind can follow naturally. This is the principle of a simple daily order, and it changes how every day feels starting tomorrow morning. Order does not come from doing more. It comes from doing things in the right sequence. Most people overload their days with tasks and then wonder why nothing feels finished. The problem is not effort. It is order. A scattered day creates a scattered mind, but a simple structure gives the mind something to follow. Your nervous system loves sequence. When it knows what comes next, it relaxes. When it doesn't, it stays alert, and alertness drains energy. This is why even productive days can feel exhausting. Too many transitions, too many decisions, too much switching. The principle of a simple daily order removes that friction. It does not ask you to plan every minute. It asks you to create a rhythm. A rhythm is different from a schedule. A schedule is rigid. A rhythm is forgiving. A rhythm guides without pressuring. Think of your day not as a long list, but as 3 clear movements. Begin, build, close. That's it. 3 phases your mind can recognize without strain. The beginning of the day is not for output. It is for orientation. This is where most people make a mistake. They wake up and immediately push themselves into performance. Messages, tasks, demands. The mind hasn't been oriented yet, so it reacts. A chaotic beginning rarely leads to an ordered day. The beginning is for setting direction, not for doing everything, but for remembering what matters. This does not need to take long. 5 minutes is enough. A quiet breath. A review of your one true priority. A simple question: what would make today feel complete? That question alone organizes effort. When the beginning is calm, the rest of the day moves more smoothly. The second phase is the build. This is where focused work belongs. Not scattered tasks. Not constant interruptions. Building means choosing one block of meaningful effort and protecting it. You don't need many hours. You need one clean hour. An hour without multitasking. An hour without switching. During this time, your mind learns something important. I can stay with one thing. That lesson carries forward, even if the rest of the day is imperfect. One clean build block creates a sense of progress. Progress reduces anxiety, because anxiety often comes from the feeling that nothing is moving. The build phase is not about intensity. It is about continuity. You are training your mind to remain present. The third phase is the close. This is the most overlooked part of the day and one of the most important. A day that is not closed spills into the next. Unfinished loops. Loose ends. Mental clutter. The mind carries all of it into the night. This is why people feel tired even after sleeping. Their mind never shut down. The close phase is not about judging the day. It is about completing it. Completion is psychological, not logistical. You don't need to finish everything. You need to acknowledge what happened. A simple close might include noting one thing that moved forward, recognizing one thing to release, setting one clear intention for tomorrow. This tells the mind the day is handled. When the mind hears that message, it rests. Without a close, the nervous system stays alert. With a close, sleep deepens, and deep sleep restores order naturally. Now, here is why this principle works so well. It reduces the number of decisions you make. You are no longer deciding all day long what to do next. The rhythm decides for you. Begin with orientation. Build with focus. Close with completion. Decision fatigue disappears. And when decision fatigue disappears, self-control improves without effort. This is how order becomes sustainable. You are not relying on willpower. You are relying on structure. Structure supports behavior even on low-energy days. That's important, because no one is consistent every day. But a simple order allows recovery without collapse. If one phase is weak, the others still hold. If the morning was rushed, the build can still happen. If the build was interrupted, the close can still restore calm. This flexibility is what makes the system durable. A simple daily order also changes your relationship with time. Time stops feeling like something chasing you. It becomes something you move through. When the day has a shape, time feels spacious. Not because you have more of it, but because you're not fighting it. You stop cramming. You stop rushing. You start finishing. And finishing is deeply satisfying to the mind. It signals safety. Completion tells the nervous system that nothing is left unresolved. This is why people with simple routines often feel calmer, even when busy. Their mind knows when effort begins and when it ends. You can start practicing this principle immediately. You don't need a perfect plan. Tomorrow, try this. Begin the day by orienting. One priority. One intention. Build during one protected block. No multitasking. One task. Close the day deliberately. Acknowledge. Release. Prepare. That's all. No apps. No complex systems. Just order your day in a way your mind can follow. In the next chapter, we'll talk about what quietly destroys this order. Not chaos, but something more subtle. Attention leaks. And how learning to guard your focus turns order into momentum. This is the principle of focus as a gate, and it changes how your mind responds to distraction forever. Focus is not a muscle you strain. It is a gate you choose to close. Most people believe they lack focus. They don't. They lack boundaries around their attention. Attention is constantly pulled notifications, thoughts, worries, unfinished tasks. And every pull leaves the gate open. An open gate lets everything in. Ideas mix. Emotions overlap. Urgency replaces intention. This is why the mind feels busy even when very little is accomplished. The principle of focus as a gate changes one thing. You stop trying to hold focus and start deciding what is not allowed inside. This matters because attention follows permission. Whatever you permit into awareness claims energy. Whatever you deny access to loses influence. Focus becomes effortless when fewer things are allowed to compete. Think of attention like light. Scattered light warms nothing. Focused light cuts through steel. The mind behaves the same way. When attention is divided, everything feels difficult. When attention is unified, even hard things feel manageable. This principle is not about intensity. It is about exclusivity. One task, one thought, one window open at a time. Most disorder comes from switching. Switching between apps, switching between tasks, switching between conversations in your head. Each switch costs energy. The brain must reorient. The nervous system must adjust. This constant reorientation creates fatigue and irritability. Guarding the gate stops that drain. Now, let's be clear. Focus does not mean ignoring reality. It means choosing sequence. There is a time for messages, a time for planning, a time for rest. Focus is deciding that now is for this and nothing else. The gate closes temporarily. This is where people often resist. They fear missing something. They fear falling behind. But attention does not multiply by being everywhere. It multiplies by being present. You do not lose ground by focusing. You gain momentum. Momentum comes from continuity. Continuity comes from protection. Protection comes from boundaries. A simple boundary makes this principle practical. One screen, one task. When you work, only the tools you need are visible. Everything else waits. When you listen, you listen. When you speak, you speak. This seems obvious. It isn't common. The modern environment trains divided attention. Multiple tabs, background noise, constant partial awareness. The mind adapts by becoming shallow. Focus as a gate reverses this. Depth returns. And depth is organizing. When you go deep into one task, you finish it. When you finish things, your mind trusts you more. Trust reduces anxiety. An anxious mind clings to distraction. A trusting mind stays present. This is why focus improves emotional stability. The nervous system feels safer when attention is contained. Containment tells the body there is nothing else to track right now. That message lowers stress hormones. Calm appears. Now, let's address internal distraction. Thoughts. Focus is not the absence of thought. It is the refusal to follow every thought. A thought may appear worry, memory, idea. You acknowledge it, and you return. No judgment, no struggle. The gate closes again. Over time, thoughts learn they are not in charge. They still appear, but they don't dominate. This trains mental authority. Authority without force. This is important. You do not need to focus all day. You need focused blocks. Even 25-45 minutes of true focus reorganize the mind. During these blocks, everything unrelated waits. Afterward, the gate can open. This rhythm prevents burnout. Constant focus exhausts. Intentional focus restores. Another part of this principle is learning to end focus deliberately. When a focused block ends, you pause, you stretch, you breathe, you transition consciously. This tells the nervous system the effort is complete. Without this transition, Focus bleeds into tension. With it, focus feels clean. Now, here is where this principle becomes transformative. As you guard your attention, you notice how often it was being stolen. Not dramatically, subtly. A glance, a thought, a sound. Each one small, together, draining. When you reclaim those moments, time expands. Not because the clock changes, but because fewer minutes are wasted switching. You experience more depth in less time. This is why focused people often appear calm. They are not rushing. They are not juggling. They are present. Presence is power. People respond differently to presence. They listen more closely. They interrupt less. They feel your attention. This improves relationships without effort. Focus as a gate also clarifies values. When attention is protected, you notice what truly matters. Noise falls away. What remains becomes obvious. This is why focus strengthens purpose. Purpose directs focus. Focus reinforces purpose. They feed each other. Now, a simple practice. Before any focused block, say quietly, "Nothing else is required right now." This sentence closes the gate. It signals permission to let everything else wait. During the block, when distraction appears, you repeat, "Later." Not never, just later. Later is safe. Later preserves trust. The mind relaxes. After the block, you return intentionally. You check messages. You respond. This teaches the mind that focus is not abandonment. It is sequence. Sequence creates order. Order creates peace. You are not becoming rigid. You are becoming selective. Selectivity is intelligence. In the next chapter, we'll explore what undermines focus, even when boundaries exist. Not distraction, but what you tolerate. Because what you allow repeatedly becomes the structure of your life. This is the principle of standards, and it quietly determines everything that stays and everything that leaves. Your life is organized not by what you want, but by what you tolerate. This is one of the quietest principles and one of the most powerful. Most people believe chaos enters life through big failures. It doesn't. It enters through small allowances, small delays, small excuses, small compromises. Things you tell yourself are not a big deal. But the mind does not measure size. It measures permission. Whatever you allow repeatedly becomes normal. And whatever becomes normal becomes structure. Standards are not rules you enforce aggressively. They are limits you no longer negotiate. When standards are low or unclear, order collapses without drama. You wake up later than intended. You postpone what matters. You accept environments that drain you. You keep commitments that no longer align. None of these seem disastrous on their own. But together, they form a system that quietly organizes your life downward. The principle of standards reverses this without pressure or self-criticism. It asks one gentle question: what am I allowing that costs me energy, clarity, or peace? Not what you hate, not what you fear, what you tolerate. Tolerance feels passive, but it is active over time. Every tolerated condition teaches your mind something. This is acceptable. and the mind builds around that message. This is why change often fails. People try to add new habits without removing old tolerances. But habits grow in the space that standards create. If the space is filled with leakage, new habits don't stick. Standards create containment. Containment creates stability. Stability allows growth. This principle does not ask you to become harsh or rigid. It asks you to become honest. Honest about what costs you more than it gives. Many people live with low-grade irritation and don't realize it. A cluttered surface. A constant background noise. A relationship that drains more than it supports. A routine that starts the day rushed. None of these are dramatic enough to demand immediate action. So they remain. And they shape the nervous system daily. Standards protect the nervous system. They reduce friction. When friction is reduced, energy returns naturally. Now, here is the key insight. You don't raise standards by demanding more from yourself. You raise them by allowing less. Less chaos. Less inconsistency. Less misalignment. This shift is calming, not stressful. Because you are not pushing forward, you are removing resistance. Think of standards like filters. They don't create content. They prevent contamination. A high standard does not mean perfection. It means clarity. For example, a standard might be, I don't start my day in a rush. That doesn't require a perfect morning routine. It requires removing the cause of rushing, going to bed earlier, preparing one thing the night before, avoiding immediate stimulation upon waking. The standard guides behavior quietly. Another example, I finish what I start. That doesn't mean you take on more. It means you take on less and complete it fully. Completion is organizing. Unfinished commitments drain attention. Finished ones restore trust. Trust in yourself is one of the strongest stabilizers of order. Now, notice how standards feel different from goals. Goals are future-oriented. Standards are present. Goals say, I want to be. Standards say, I do not accept. Standards operate immediately. They don't wait for motivation. They shape choices in real time. This is why standards are more reliable than willpower. Willpower fluctuates. Standards endure. Now, let's address the most common resistance. People fear that raising standards will make life smaller, more restricted, less flexible. The opposite is true. Low standards create chaos. Chaos restricts freedom. High standards create clarity. Clarity creates freedom. When you know what you will not tolerate, decisions become simple. You stop negotiating with yourself. Negotiation is exhausting. Clarity is restful. Standards also improve self-respect, not through ego, but through consistency. Each time you uphold a standard, you send a message to your subconscious, I keep myself safe. Safety calms the nervous system. A calm nervous system supports focus, discipline, and emotional balance. This is why standards influence everything else. Now, here is how to apply this principle gently. Do not try to raise all standards at once. Choose one area, just one, where disorder costs you the most energy. It might be sleep, time boundaries, work quality, digital noise, emotional tolerance. Then define one clear standard, not complicated, simple and observable. For example, I don't answer messages during my focused work block. I clear one surface before I rest. I speak to myself with respect. I stop work at a defined time. Standards should be small enough that they feel doable, but meaningful enough that they create relief. Relief is the signal you're on the right path. When a standard is violated, you don't punish yourself. You correct gently. Correction restores order. Punishment creates resistance. This is important. Standards are about alignment, not control. You are not forcing obedience. You are restoring coherence. Over time, something interesting happens. Your environment begins to adjust. People respond to your clarity. Expectations shift. Interruptions decrease. Not because you argue, but because standards are felt. Clarity communicates without words. You also begin to notice how many things you once tolerated that you no longer need to. Life becomes lighter. Not because you added something, but because you removed what didn't belong. This principle also applies internally, to self-talk, to thought patterns. You are allowed to have standards about how you speak to yourself. A simple one might be, I do not rehearse self-criticism. That doesn't mean negative thoughts never appear. It means they don't stay. They are noticed and released. Internal standards organize emotional life. They prevent spirals. They protect peace. Now, take a moment, not to decide everything, just to notice. Where are you tolerating something that quietly drains you? The answer may be subtle. That's okay. Standards often begin as a feeling of relief when you imagine removing something. That relief is your nervous system recognizing order. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to turn clarity and standards into forward movement without pressure. Because order must flow, not through force, but through a simple plan that gives direction to your energy. This is the principle of planning as a channel, and it's where order becomes progress. Order needs a direction to move. Without direction, even clarity becomes stagnant. You may know what matters. You may protect your focus. You may hold strong standards. But without a plan, energy spreads. The mind returns to guessing, and guessing creates tension. The principle of planning as a channel is not about complexity. It is about giving your energy somewhere to flow. A channel does not force water. It guides it. In the same way, a plan does not pressure you. It removes uncertainty. Uncertainty is exhausting. When the mind does not know what comes next, it stays alert. Alertness without purpose becomes anxiety. A simple plan calms the nervous system because it answers one quiet question: what happens? Now, most people resist planning because they confuse it with rigidity. They imagine long schedules, perfect execution, or failure when plans change. That is not planning. That is control. True planning is cooperative. It works with reality, not against it. A good plan is light. It leaves room for adjustment. It gives structure without suffocation. Think of planning as a bridge. It connects intention to action. Without a bridge, you stand on one side, wanting change, and never cross. With a bridge, movement becomes natural. The mind likes knowing that there is a next step. Not 10 steps, not a master strategy, just the next one. This is where most people lose momentum. They try to plan too far ahead. The mind becomes overwhelmed, and energy drops. Order turns into pressure. Planning as a channel focuses on short horizons. What needs to happen today to support your priority? What needs to happen this week to keep momentum? Nothing more. When the horizon is close, the mind stays engaged. When it's too far, the mind drifts. A simple plan has 3 qualities. It is visible. It is actionable. It is revisable. Visible means you can see it without searching. A plan hidden in your head competes with every other thought. A written plan becomes external. It relieves mental load. This is why writing things down feels organizing. You are not trying to remember everything. You are letting structure hold it for you. Actionable means each step can actually be done. Not vague intentions, clear actions. Instead of work on project, it becomes open file and write first paragraph. Clarity removes resistance. Resistance often comes from not knowing how to begin. A clear action answers that. Revisable means the plan is allowed to change. This is crucial. A rigid plan breaks under reality. A flexible plan adapts. Adaptation is not failure. It is intelligence. Planning as a channel accepts that information will change. You adjust the plan, not your priority. This maintains order without frustration. Now, here is the most calming aspect of planning. Once something is planned, you no longer have to think about it. You trust the channel. This frees attention. Many people keep rethinking the same decisions because nothing has been decided clearly. A plan decides once, so you don't decide again. That alone saves enormous energy. Planning also creates psychological safety. The mind relaxes when it knows there is a structure holding things. This is why people feel calmer after making a simple plan even before taking action. The plan itself restores order. Now, let's talk about scale. Your plan does not need to be big. In fact, smaller plans work better. 1 page, 1 list, 1 clear sequence. Planning too much creates another form of chaos. The goal is not control. The goal is flow. Energy wants to move. A plan shows it where. Here is a simple way to apply this principle. Each day, plan only 3 things, not urgent things. Important ones. 3 actions that support your priority. That's enough. When you complete them, the day feels successful, even if other things happen. Completion creates confidence. Confidence feeds momentum. Momentum reinforces order. Planning also helps with emotional regulation. When stress appears, you return to the plan, not to escape emotion, but to ground it. The plan becomes a stabilizer. Instead of asking, "What should I do now?" you ask, "What did I already decide?" Decision precedes emotion. This reduces impulsive behavior. Now, let's address the deeper layer. Planning is an act of trust. You are trusting yourself to follow through. Each time you keep a plan, even a small one, you strengthen self-trust. Self-trust is foundational to order. When you trust yourself, you stop micromanaging. When you stop micromanaging, you conserve energy. Energy returns to creativity. This is why organized people often appear relaxed. They are not carrying everything in their heads. Structure is carrying it for them. Planning as a channel also teaches patience. Progress becomes visible. You stop expecting immediate transformation. You see steady movement. Steady movement calms impatience. Impatience is a sign that the mind has no structure to rely on. A plan gives the mind something solid. Now, here is a key insight. A plan is not a promise to the world. It is a conversation with yourself. You are allowed to revise it without guilt. The only rule is honesty. If a plan no longer fits, you adjust it consciously. You don't abandon it unconsciously. Abandonment creates disorder. Adjustment maintains order. This distinction matters. When you consciously revise a plan, you stay in control. When you unconsciously abandon it, the mind loses trust. Trust is fragile. Protect it. Over time, planning becomes intuitive. You stop overthinking steps. You naturally sequence actions. This is when life begins to feel smoother. Less friction. Less hesitation. You move forward without constant self-negotiation. Before we move on, pause for a moment. Notice how your body responds to the idea of a simple plan. Not a perfect one. A supportive one. If you feel relief, that's your nervous system recognizing order. In the next chapter, we'll talk about something deeper, because even the best plan fails when energy is depleted. You can have clarity, focus, and structure, and still struggle if your energy is not respected. So next, we'll explore the principle of energy before time, and why managing energy organizes life far more effectively than managing hours ever could. Most people try to organize their lives by managing time, but time is neutral. It does not care how you feel. It does not adjust to your state. Energy does. You can have a perfectly planned day and still feel overwhelmed if your energy is depleted. This is why time management often fails. It treats the clock as the problem instead of the body. The principle of energy before time corrects this misunderstanding. Order is not created by filling hours. It is created by supporting the system that uses them. Your mind, your body, your nervous system. When energy is low, everything feels harder. Decisions feel heavier. Focus slips faster. Emotions rise quicker. This is not a character flaw. It is a physiological reality. Energy is the foundation that supports every other principle. Without energy, standards feel restrictive. Plans feel burdensome. Focus feels forced. With energy, order feels natural. The mind cooperates. This principle asks you to stop asking, "How do I fit more into my day?" and start asking, "How do I support my energy so my day flows?" Flow requires fuel. And energy is not just physical. It has 3 layers: physical, mental, emotional. If any one of these is depleted, order becomes difficult. Let's begin with the physical. Your brain is part of your body. When the body is under-rested, the brain becomes reactive. Small problems feel big. Distractions feel irresistible. Sleep is not optional for order. It is foundational. You cannot organize a tired nervous system. Even small improvements in sleep restore disproportionate clarity. Earlier rest, darker room, gentler evenings. These are not lifestyle trends. They are neurological support. Next, mental energy. Mental energy is consumed by decisions. Every choice drains a little. This is why standards and planning matter. They protect energy by reducing choice. But inputs matter too. Too much information fragments mental energy. Clean inputs preserve it. When mental energy is high, focus feels effortless. When it's low, everything feels scattered. The third layer is emotional energy. Unprocessed emotion drains energy silently. Resentment, anxiety, unresolved tension. These states keep the nervous system activated. Activation consumes energy even when nothing is happening externally. This is why emotional regulation is part of organization. Calmness restores energy. Not because problems disappear, but because resistance softens. Now, here is the key insight of this principle. Energy is renewable when respected. Time is not. You can recover energy. You cannot recover wasted hours. So, the wise approach is to protect energy first. This changes how you structure your day. Instead of scheduling everything equally, you assign your best energy to what matters most. Your priority receives your best hours, not your leftovers. This is a form of respect. Respect for yourself. Respect for the work. When you do this, progress accelerates, because quality matters more than quantity. One focused hour with high energy often outperforms 5 tired ones. This principle also changes how you view rest. Rest is not a reward. It is maintenance. Maintenance prevents breakdown. The body needs cycles of activation and recovery. Without recovery, order collapses. Guilt-free rest restores energy faster than forced productivity. This is why planned rest is organizing. It prevents burnout. Burnout is disorder in the nervous system. Now, let's talk about signals. Your body constantly communicates its energy state. Tightness, irritability, fog. These are not enemies. They are information. Ignoring them leads to collapse. Listening leads to adjustment. Adjustment maintains order. This is not about indulgence. It is about intelligence. When energy drops, you don't push harder. You simplify. You return to essentials. This preserves stability. Now, here is a simple practice. Each morning, ask one question. What is my energy best used for today? Not what needs to be done. What your energy can support. This creates alignment. Alignment reduces friction. Friction drains energy. It becomes a positive loop. Support energy, better focus, smoother progress, restored energy. Now, let's address something important. Energy is also affected by meaning. Tasks that align with purpose generate energy. Tasks that don't drain it This is why one true priority matters. When energy is spent on misaligned tasks, fatigue increases. When energy supports purpose, even effort feels lighter. Meaning organizes energy. This is why people can work long hours on something meaningful without exhaustion. The nervous system responds to significance. This principle also explains why multitasking is draining. Switching costs energy. Staying with one thing conserves it. This reinforces focus as a gate. All principles connect. Energy before time keeps the system intact. Without energy, the system collapses. With energy, everything supports everything else. Before we move on, take a moment. Notice your current energy, not judge it. Just notice. Where does it feel supported? Where does it feel strained? That awareness alone begins restoration. In the next chapter, we'll move into something deeper. Because even with energy, order collapses if the inner emotional climate is chaotic. So, next, we explore the principle of emotional regulation, how calm becomes a skill, and how emotional order creates stability in every area of life. Most people believe their emotions are reactions. Something happens, then they feel. But this belief keeps them disorganized, because reactions are unpredictable, and unpredictability destroys order. The organized life requires something deeper, not emotional suppression, not emotional denial, but emotional regulation. This is the ability to remain internally stable, regardless of external movement. Order does not collapse because life is difficult. It collapses because emotion becomes ungoverned. When emotions rule, plans dissolve, focus breaks, energy drains. This is why emotional regulation is not a soft skill. It is structural. It is load-bearing. An unregulated emotional state is like an earthquake under a well-built house. Eventually, everything cracks. The principle of emotional regulation teaches this truth. You do not need to control life. You need to stabilize your inner climate. Because behavior follows emotion, and emotion follows interpretation. This is the first shift. Events do not create emotion. Meaning creates emotion. The same event can produce panic in one person and calm in another. The difference is interpretation. And interpretation is a skill. Most people never learn it. They live inside emotional reflexes formed years ago. Stress response, defense patterns, old fears. These patterns operate automatically. But automatic does not mean permanent. Regulation begins with awareness. You cannot regulate what you do not notice. Most people say, I just felt angry. I just felt anxious. But just hides the truth. There was a moment before reaction. A micro pause. That pause is power. Emotional regulation trains you to expand that pause. Because within that pause, you choose response. Response creates order. Reaction creates chaos. This principle does not aim to remove emotion. Emotion is energy. But unmanaged energy becomes destructive. Managed energy becomes fuel. Think of emotion like fire. Uncontained, it burns the house. Contained, it warms it. Regulation is containment. Now let's talk about the nervous system. Your emotions live there. When the nervous system feels unsafe, it prioritizes survival. Logic weakens, focus narrows, impulse increases. This is why emotional order cannot be forced through willpower. It must be supported through safety. Safety is created by calm signals, slow breath, stable posture, gentle internal language. These signals tell the nervous system you are not in danger. When danger perception drops, clarity returns, order returns. This is why breath is not spiritual decoration. It is regulation technology. Slow breathing activates the parasympathetic system. That system restores order. Even 1 minute can change your internal state. Now, here is a key misunderstanding. People think emotional strength means feeling nothing. That is emotional numbness. It creates rigidity. True strength is emotional flexibility, the ability to feel without being controlled, to observe without drowning, to experience without collapsing structure. The regulated person still feels fear, still feels sadness, still feels frustration. But those states pass through instead of taking over. They do not hijack behavior. They do not rewrite plans. They do not destroy consistency. This is the difference between emotional adults and emotional children. Children are ruled by feeling. Adults use feeling as information. This principle matures the mind. Now let's address emotional accumulation. Unexpressed emotion does not disappear. It stores. Stored emotion leaks through irritability, fatigue, distraction. This is why emotional hygiene matters. Just as you clean your body daily, you must clear emotional residue. This does not require drama. It requires honesty. A simple daily practice. Name the emotion. Name the cause. Release the charge. Naming reduces intensity. The brain calms when experience is labeled. This restores regulation. Another key element, boundaries. Many emotional disturbances come from overexposure. Too many conversations, too much noise, too much comparison. Regulation requires selective input. You cannot remain calm while feeding chaos. This is why order involves removal. Less stimulation, less reactivity, less unnecessary engagement. Peace is protected. Now let's talk about emotional leadership. If you lead yourself emotionally, others feel safe around you. Calm is contagious. So is chaos. Your emotional state sets the temperature of every room you enter. This is power. Not power over others, but power over environment. A regulated person does not escalate conflict. They absorb intensity and return clarity. This makes them trusted. Trust creates opportunity. Opportunity creates progress. Emotional regulation is therefore strategic. Now, let's connect this principle to productivity. Most procrastination is emotional avoidance, not laziness. People delay tasks that create discomfort. Regulation allows you to stay present with discomfort without escaping. This is mastery. You don't force action. You stabilize emotion until action becomes possible. This is why calm increases discipline. Now let's talk about self-talk. Internal language shapes emotion. Harsh self-talk creates threat. Threat destabilizes. Gentle firmness creates safety. Safety supports order. This does not mean weakness. It means precision. Speak to yourself as a strong, calm leader would. Clear, direct, non-reactive. This changes emotional baseline over time. Baseline matters. The goal is not to regulate constantly. The goal is to lower baseline volatility, so fewer spikes occur. This is achieved through repetition, consistent sleep, consistent routines, consistent inner language. The nervous system loves predictability. Predictability creates calm. Calm creates order. Now, here is a powerful insight. You cannot regulate emotions while rushing. Speed amplifies emotion. Slowness diffuses it. This does not mean moving slowly in life. It means moving internally slower. Pausing before speaking. Pausing before reacting. Pausing before deciding. This pause is mastery. Now, let's integrate. When emotional regulation is present, plans stay intact under pressure. Focus remains stable. Energy is preserved. Relationships stabilize. Decision quality improves. This is not abstract. This is structural. Without emotional regulation, no system survives stress. With it, even imperfect systems endure. Before we move on, take a moment. Notice your breath. Relax the jaw. Drop the shoulders. That is regulation. You are training the system right now. In the next chapter, we will explore the principle of environmental design. Because even a regulated mind will struggle in a chaotic environment. Order must be externalized. Your space must support your system. And when environment aligns with mind, life begins to flow with surprising ease. Most people try to change their lives without changing their environment. And then they wonder why nothing sticks. They build plans, set intentions, make promises to themselves. But every day, they wake up inside the same space that trained the old behaviors. Environment is not neutral. It is instructional. Your surroundings are constantly teaching your nervous system how to behave. If your environment is noisy, your mind learns to scatter. If your environment is cluttered, your mind learns to delay. If your environment is chaotic, your emotions stay alert instead of calm. This is why discipline alone is never enough. You cannot out-discipline an environment that is designed to distract you. The principle of environmental design states this clearly. Your life will always move in the direction your environment makes easiest, not the direction you want, the direction that requires the least resistance. This principle removes blame. You are not weak. You are conditioned. And conditioning can be redesigned. Let's begin with a simple truth. Willpower is fragile. Environment is constant. Willpower fades with fatigue. Environment influences you even when you're tired. That's why order must be built outside the mind, not only inside it. The organized life is not created by effort. It is created by structure. Structure reduces decision-making. Decision-making drains energy. When energy drains, discipline collapses. But when structure exists, behavior flows automatically. This is mastery. Now, let's look at physical space. Your room. your desk, your phone, your digital world. Each object is a signal. Each signal tells your brain what kind of person you are here. A cluttered desk says, "Nothing here is urgent." A clean desk says, "This space has purpose." The brain responds accordingly. Order outside creates order inside. This is not aesthetic preference. It is neurological alignment. The brain seeks patterns. When it sees coherence, it calms. When it sees disorder, it prepares for threat. That preparation shows up as anxiety, avoidance, restlessness. So the first step is not motivation. It is removal. Remove what does not serve the function of the space. Each space must have a single role. A bed is for rest. A desk is for work. A chair is for thinking. When spaces are mixed, the mind becomes confused. Confusion creates friction. Friction creates delay. Delay kills momentum. Environmental design is about clarity. Now, let's talk about invisible environment. Your phone is an environment. Notifications are intrusions. Each interruption fractures attention. Fractured attention cannot build depth. Depth is required for mastery. If your phone constantly pulls you, it is training your mind to be shallow. This is not a moral failure. It is exposure. Design your digital environment with the same seriousness you design your physical one. Silence non-essential alerts. Remove apps that pull compulsively. Create friction for distraction and ease for focus. The rule is simple: make good behavior easy. Make bad behavior inconvenient. This rule governs everything. Want to read more? Place the book where you sit. Want to scroll less? Place friction between you and the app. Design does the work, so willpower doesn't have to. Now, let's address social environment. People are environments. Every person you spend time with reinforces certain behaviors. Some environments amplify order. Others normalize chaos. You don't need to judge. You need to choose exposure. Order is sensitive. Too much noise destroys rhythm. This is why organized individuals become selective. Not cold. Not arrogant. Selective. They protect attention the way a surgeon protects sterility. Because contamination ruins results. Your environment also includes language. Words around you matter. Media matters. Constant crisis language keeps the nervous system activated. Activated systems seek distraction. Calm systems seek creation. Choose inputs that stabilize. This is not ignorance. It is strategy. Now, here is a powerful realization. Environment does not only influence behavior, it shapes identity. You begin to act like the kind of person who belongs in that space. A clean space trains self-respect. A prepared space trains readiness. A calm space trains regulation. This is why changing environment often changes behavior without effort. The body adapts. The mind follows. This principle is compassionate. It does not demand force. It removes obstacles. Now let's discuss maintenance. Order decays naturally. Entropy exists. So environment must be reset regularly. This is not a flaw. It is law. A daily reset keeps order alive. 5 minutes. Clear surfaces. Prepare tomorrow's space. This small act creates momentum. The next day begins clean. Clean beginnings produce clarity. Clarity produces speed. Speed produces confidence. Environmental design is not perfection. It is support. Your environment should make it easier to be the person you are becoming, not who you were. This is key. Design for future identity, not current habits. This is how change becomes inevitable. Now pause for a moment. Look around you. What is one thing you could remove today that would make tomorrow calmer? That is your first action. In the final chapter, we will bring everything together. Because order is not about control. It is about identity alignment. When who you are matches how you live, life stops resisting you. Chapter 10 will show you how these principles merge into a single system, not effort-based, not rigid, but calm, powerful, and permanent. Every principle you've heard so far leads to this final truth. Your life does not become organized when you try harder. It becomes organized when who you are and how you live stop contradicting each other. This is the principle of identity alignment. Most people live with internal conflict. They want calm, but identify as someone who is always busy. They want order, but see themselves as naturally messy. They want consistency, but secretly believe they are not disciplined. This conflict creates friction. Friction drains energy, and drained energy collapses systems. You can build plans. You can set routines. You can design environments. But if your identity rejects those structures, they will never last. Identity always wins. This is why people sabotage progress right when life starts improving. The nervous system returns them to what feels familiar, not what is best, what is known. Identity alignment changes that. It rewrites the internal agreement between self-image and behavior. Here is the core truth. You do not rise to your goals. You fall to your identity. So the final organization must happen here, not in your calendar, not in your workspace, in your self-concept. Let's define identity clearly. Identity is not personality. It is not mood. It is the story you repeat about who you are, and repetition makes it real. Every time you say, "I'm disorganized," the nervous system obeys. Every time you say, "I'm bad with time," the brain stops trying. These are commands, not descriptions. Identity alignment begins by removing false labels. You are not chaotic. You were unstructured. You are not lazy. You were overloaded. You are not inconsistent. You lacked systems. This reframing matters because shame destroys order. Compassion restores it. Now comes the redefinition. You must consciously choose a new operating identity, not an aspiration, a decision, an identity statement that matches the life you are building. For example, I am a person who moves with calm order. I am someone who finishes what I begin. I live deliberately. I value clarity. These are not affirmations. They are instructions. The subconscious listens. Identity alignment is not pretending. It is rehearsal. Every identity begins as an intentional practice before it becomes natural. No one is born organized. They become organized by repeatedly acting in alignment with a chosen identity. Behavior confirms identity. Identity stabilizes behavior. This feedback loop creates permanence. Now, let's talk about resistance. When you change identity, resistance appears. Old habits push back. Old emotions surface. This is not failure. It is integration. The nervous system is adjusting. Stay calm. Do not argue with resistance. Observe it. Respond gently. Say internally, "This is old programming leaving." Alignment is quiet. It does not force. It repeats. Now, let's integrate all principles. Purpose gives direction. Planning gives structure. Attention gives focus. Discipline gives rhythm. Emotional regulation gives stability. Environment gives support. Identity gives permanence. When identity aligns, all others lock into place. You no longer ask, "What should I do?" you ask, "What would someone like me do here?" This simplifies decisions. It reduces fatigue. It creates consistency. Identity alignment also changes time perception. Disorganized lives feel rushed. Aligned lives feel spacious. Not because there is more time, but because there is less friction. Less second-guessing. Less emotional drag. Less internal debate. Action becomes clean. Now, here is the final insight. Organization is not control. It is trust. Trust in your systems. Trust in your identity. Trust that tomorrow does not require reinvention. When identity aligns, you stop negotiating with yourself. You keep promises. Not because you force yourself, but because breaking alignment feels uncomfortable. Integrity becomes automatic. This is freedom. Now pause. Take a slow breath. Ask yourself quietly, who am I becoming? Not what you want. Who you are choosing to be. That answer is your foundation. From this moment forward, let behavior confirm identity. Small actions, repeated daily, calmly. This is how lives reorganize. Not through intensity, but through alignment. In the next section, we will close this journey with a gentle outro and call to action. Not to push you, but to help you seal what you've already begun. And now, as this journey comes to a close, notice how your mind feels. Not excited, not rushed, but settled. Because real order does not arrive with noise. It arrives with quiet certainty. You didn't just hear ideas tonight. You were introduced to a way of living. A way where your days no longer chase you. A way where your thoughts no longer compete. A way where your life begins to move as one system, calm, deliberate, and strong. Remember, this order is not restriction. Order is relief. It is waking up knowing what matters. It is acting without inner argument. It is resting without guilt. You don't need to master all 10 principles at once. You only need to live one of them tomorrow. One clear priority. One planned action. One calm response. One intentional environment choice. That is how identity forms. Quietly. Naturally. Permanently. If this message resonated with you, if you felt clarity where there was once confusion, Take a moment and write in the comments, "I choose order." Not for me, for yourself, because declaring it anchors it. And if you're listening as you fall asleep, let the next video play. This channel exists for one reason: to help you build a life that feels peaceful, powerful, and aligned even while you sleep. So, if you haven't already, subscribe to Sleep Success Audiobook. Not for motivation, but for structure. Not for noise, but for clarity. New videos are designed to gently rewire your mindset, lower mental chaos, and help you wake up more focused than the night before. Before you drift off, take one slow breath in and let it go. Tonight, your mind rests in order. Tomorrow, your life moves with direction. Good night.